Hey, it's Adele from Let's Get Inkie, and today I'm doing one of my favourite art journal pages that I've made for a while. I'm using my Dina Wakley media journal, and if you're one of my Patreon peeps, you would have seen me talk about it and a process video about it before, and I've talked about what I liked and didn't like, but it has all different types of paper in it. And today I'm venturing out of my comfort zone and working with one of these Hessian pages. Now, they're very Hessian-y. I'm used to paper. Sorry for my big noggin in the way there. I'm used to paper, and they are a bit of a challenge for me. So I decide to cut it into a shape to kind of make it more appealing for my brain to work with. I know that sounds silly, but I think it's easier for me to use these pages if I cut them rather than leaving them as they are. So I'm using some clear gesso, and the reason why I'm doing that is for a couple of reasons. For the first reason is that if I want to put I wasn't really quite sure what I was doing at this point, to tell you the truth. I never really am when I start an art journal page. And the reason why I'm using this gesso is because I find it a lot easier to work on the Hessian and the canvas pages when there is gesso down first. It makes them a bit stiffer. It makes them less Hessian-y. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it makes them less bumpy and a little bit easier to work on. I still can't write on them, but it just makes it easier to apply paint, especially if I want to use some paler colours. So I decided to do a heart on the other side, and initially I was planning on cutting out both sides, but I do change my mind once sticking all the papers down. I'm using some matte gel medium, and I'm using that like an adhesive, and matte gel medium has a lot of different things you can use it for. I use it mainly as a glue and like a sealer, like a top coat. So it's very decoupage how I'm working here. I'm just ripping up little bits of paper, putting the matte gel medium on the bottom, and then putting more over the top just to really seal them in and secure them down. The reason why I like the matte is that you can't tell, well, you can tell, but you can't tell easily where you've put the product. So if I was to put some and accidentally go over the line where I wanted to go, I could easily, you wouldn't be able to tell as much as if I used the glossy. And I do use the glossy for other things in my, especially on my scrapbooking channel. I've done a couple of things with stencils with the glossy gel medium. So I'm going through, I have, if you've watched my craft room tour on my main channel, QUILL, I have this little set of drawers where I keep collage items. So I have a small collage, a large collage, that's fun to say, a painted papers drawer, and then a drawer for tissues and napkins. And I kind of just rated it. I want to clear it out a little bit and get some stuff used up, because I seem to always be adding stuff, but I don't always take away big parts. I usually only tear off like a teeny tiny section, and then most of it still stays in the drawer. So I'm really trying to use up some of my scraps and get them out of here, because there's always more scraps coming in. So I'm using a variety of different things. I've got some book paper. This is some misted cardboard. I've got note paper, tissue paper, some Tim Holtz printed tissue paper. I was going to tear that. It's a, I think it's like a docket or some sort of old documentation, but it was too pretty. I have to leave that for when I can use it as one piece. But this is a good way just to use up scrap papers. Even if you're a scrapbooker, you could use this kind of strategy to make a background for your page using scrapbook papers. Basically just anything you can find. Now, in the end, I do end up using this whole piece of star tissue paper, just because the piece that I had to put away was ridiculous. It was so small and better out than in my drawers, I'd say. So I'm just going through and just continuing to add. I feel like when I do a technique, when I do a technique like this and things look a bit wild, there's always kind of an ugly stage. Not that this is ugly, but it's messy. It looks undone. It doesn't look like anything. It looks like a blob of rubbish. So I often use black as a way to rein in my layouts and my my scrapbook pages, my art journal pages, I find that the power of black is amazing, but you've got to be careful. You've got to use it in the right ratio. So you'll see here what I do end up using quite a lot of black on this page, but it's not in your face black. I do a couple of things to make it tie in with the rest of the page and not just, whoa, black paint, just right in your face. If you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Adele. I have a main channel, Inkie Quill, which is for scrapbooking, and then this is my second channel, which is for art journaling, traveler's notebook journaling, planners, all of that type of thing. I try to post videos here once a week. I am hoping in this new year to get ahead a couple of months and definitely be posting at least once a week. We'll see how we go. But I just enjoy the crafty, creative process. So don't forget to subscribe if you're new and you need a new tangenty Australian redhead to listen to. I think I'm your gal. So I'm going through, and this is when I was still planning on cutting out the other side of the heart. I do outline, I folded the Hessian part in half and drew around it so I knew the outline. And then I decide, no, instead of cutting today, because I feel like if I was to cut it, these two pages would get lost in my art journal and I may forget that they're two separate pages and just turn them over as one. I do end up just painting around the outside of the heart, and I'm really glad, really glad that I did. My camera is shaking, I'm sorry. My little boy, my little Archie, was playing with my tripod. I took over the lounge room the other week and I decided to film in the lounge room. Usually I film in my craft room, but my husband's home on holidays at the moment and he's been doing dad duty while I work, and I kind of wanted to hang out with them. So I've taken over the lounge room and set up a temporary studio, which I love and Archie loves because he wants to get into everything. I'm not sure if everyone in the household loves it as much as I do. So like always, I tried to paint a straight line and it wasn't straight and it got wonkier and wonkier, and so I had to make my black line of my heart go in and more in and in and in on the heart, but we got there in the end. That's actually why I originally came up with the name Inkie Quill, because I used to paint large canvases. I used to do pop art style pinup girls, and I would use black paint to paint around the outside of the girls. This is before I knew of the magic of paint pens, and so I would do that exact thing. I would start off with a skinny line and then I'd get fatter and fatter and fatter, and I got so frustrated with it that I started to do it with a quill and ink, and that's how I came up with the name Inkie Quill, in case you've ever wondered why I came up with that name. I'm using a stencil here, and it's a cheap one from, I think it's from Riot Art and Craft stores here in Australia, and it's just a pretty swirly pattern. Picked it up for a couple of dollars. It is very thin and flimsy, very thin. I don't think I would ever use texture paste through here. I think it would be an absolute pain to clean. It kind of would be a one-use texture paste kind of stencil. As it is now, I do clean all my stencils, but I can't clean this one from the black. It's too difficult, so it shall forever be black. By the way, I'm using my Dilutions black paint. I'm sure it has a name other than black, but it's the only black one that they have, and I really like this paint because it is so thin and it dries quickly, which is great for if you're doing stenciling. You don't want big cluggy chunky paint because it can get under the stencil. Now I will admit here I applied way too much paint, and I knew as soon as I put my paintbrush on the paper that I was doing that on this side, but I just went with it because sometimes you just got to go with the mess and go with the flow. So the stencil did bleed a lot on the left hand side, and the way that I fix that up, or kind of take the focus away from that, is with the magic of the white pen. So like I said before, I had no real plan for this page. It's just kind of coming together as I'm going. I knew that I wanted to do this. I had a photo of Archie that I wanted to scrap, and that's where I started off from. I'm using my white Uniball broad pen, and it's my favorite white pen. I've tried lots of different white pens. There's Archie playing with the tripod again, sorry. I've tried a lot of different white pens. The Posca white paint pens are good, but I find they're not as opaque as the broad Uniball. And I find that the Signo, which is the thinner Uniball pen, which also comes in white, isn't as opaque either. It could just be my user error. Very, very likely could be my user error, but my favorite just seems to be this broad one. It's my go-to one for journaling, on top of dark paint, on top of dark photos. I use it for everything. So I'm just going through and I'm really roughly outlining all of these black pieces, and I'm not doing it right on the outline. I'm kind of doing it slightly in, like a millimeter in from the dark outline. The reason why I did that was a couple of things. First of all, it's far easier than trying to get perfectly on the outline. If you go perfectly on the outline, you're going to find yourself doing what I used to do to my paintings and making the lines thicker and thicker and thicker every time to try and cover up every little space. I then decided this heart needed an outline. I did a layout, I think it was in December sometime, where I did a girl and I did a white outline around the girl. Yes, I'm sure I put that one up. And I loved that. So I'm really obsessed with doing white lines around things, but leaving the teeniest of tiny gaps in between the white and the actual thing I'm outlining. Adding a little scripty words here. I think it says love you for something always and forever. Love you. I can't read it upside down, but it's about love. So I'm going through and I'm trying to find a picture of Archie that I want to scrap. These are all my extra photos that I have in my traveler's notebook ready to go. They're all either misprints or extra prints that I've done, and it's just really handy to use. I was contemplating that big photo where he's got carrot on his nose like a little snowman, but it was just too big. So I end up going with this one, and I love it. It's just, I just love it so much, this photo. I was taking photos of Archie with some of my Inkie Quill merch on. He's got a little onesie that says some bunny is ready to get scrappy, and I love this photo so very much. I decided to staple it on because I'm still unsure as the best way to stick things to the hessian, and I think that's part of the fun with art journaling, that you don't know all the answers for how everything's going to turn out. I find that scrapbooking's a lot more predictable in how the products will react and how things will look together. But when I'm art journaling, it's a lot more guesswork and kind of just going with the flow. If something doesn't work, then your page can completely change direction. If you do both scrapbooking and art journaling, let me know if you agree with that kind of idea. I had no idea where this page was going when I started, and I think that's what I like so much about this page, is that it just kind of grew from nowhere. I did a little script writing on some spare cardstock that I had, and I'm just gluing it down with my Scotch tacky glue. I'm finding that's working for the hessian so far. It does go through to the other page so I've got some baking paper or waxed paper, I think that's what you might call it in the Northern Hemisphere, just to protect that other page so it doesn't stick to it too much. But I must say, I do have very cheap baking paper here. The good stuff's in the kitchen. I got the cheap stuff for the craft room, and I'm regretting it because it's not very waxy. It's not very, yes, things stick when they shouldn't, when I know that if I use the other one, they wouldn't stick as much. I'm adding some gold Heidi Shine because can't have enough Heidi Shine, and I decided to put it all over the black, and I'm really glad that I did, because I think the warm tone of the Heidi Shine, the gold, brings in the hessian from the other side so that it's not so chalk and cheese one side to the other. So one side's very colourful and pretty, and the other side's very neutral black and Hessian. And I think by adding the gold high shine, it kind of ties in the colors across the page. Now off camera I did add an embellishment that I had already made, so that little tag I had already had made and was just sitting on my desk. But this is the finished layout, so please, if you're a new subscriber, welcome, hello. Please feel free to subscribe if you enjoy what you see. I do lots of different things over here on this channel. I've got some junk journal videos coming up for you as well, so stay tuned for those. But that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, because it helps YouTube know what other people might like to see, and it helps out my little channel a bit too. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all very soon. Bye.